The following episode will contain spoilers. You have been warned.
You're listening to Cinema IRL, the podcast that throws you into the movie and asks the question, what would you do? Are you scared of dying? What if you knew that if you did, you'd get to restart that night just a little more screwed up than before and continue this pattern indefinitely until you're too screwed up or you survive? Oh, and they're definitely trying to kill you. Yeah, that's Until Dawn. And now, Cinema IRL.
I wish I could switch places for just one day.
What would you do?
Put yourself in my shoes.
How do we handle this?
What would you do?
Put yourself in my position.
What would you do?
Now it's your turn.
You know what they say?
No.
If at first you don't succeed, die again.
Oh, goodness. I see we're off to a solid start here on today's episode. Hello, boys and girls. Today we are talking about the film Until Dawn. Exploring an abandoned visitor center, they find themselves stalked by a masked killer and horrifically murdered one by one, only to wake up and find themselves back at the beginning of the same evening. Hope dwindling, the group soon realizes they have a limited number of deaths left, and the only way to escape is to survive until dawn.
I find it interesting that they seem to all have to die to start over.
Yeah, so to put all of this together for folks before we really dive in here is Clover is looking for her sister, Melanie, who left and seems to have disappeared. And they're trying to track where she was last. And ultimately, they wind up at this visitor center where you have a guest book to sign in. And apparently, when you sign that guest book, it starts this adventure where an hourglass turns upside down and you are stalked and killed. And then once everybody's killed, you wake up and you still have some of the trauma, the bruises from what you've been through, but you live again to get killed again, and you're trying not to get killed. But there's all kinds of weird monsters and zombie-like things and weird creatures who won't die coming after you. And it appears that people who have signed the guest book prior to them have had about 13 go-rounds.
Yeah, it seems like you could mostly die as many times as you need, but you suffer damage every time you do.
And you also endure some sort of side effects that starts making your hair fall out, and then these weird humps throughout the spine of your back, and you start transforming into one of these creatures that is actually attacking you.
Oh, I think I know what those creatures were. Oh, my God.
Hi.
Yes, Jimmy, what were the creatures?
They were fucking zombies.
Yeah. Hey,
they were dead. I know what that's like.
Hey, Jimmy. Can you introduce yourself for folks who aren't familiar with you?
Sorry. I'm Jimmy. I'm kind of the resident expert in zombies around here.
Why is that?
Because I'm a zombie.
You are indeed. And thank you for dropping in. Although not invited, your perspective here is actually going to be relevant.
Well, I kind of figure if there's going to be zombies, I'm going to at least chime in.
Yeah.
I have access to the AMC app. I could see which movies y'all are going to see. And I know which ones have zombies.
Yeah. These creatures did definitely have zombie-like traits. They were never really called zombies, but they're basically an army of these creatures that we believe are the past folks to visit the visitor center and not get out alive, and then they transform into these creatures.
Did you see that scene near the end when there were like 7 or 8 of them?
I did.
Heading towards a house at once?
I did.
Those fuckers were shambling. Those were zombies. I don't care what you think they might have been. Those were zombies.
Okay. Can you define shambling for those who might not be familiar with that term?
Yeah, it's kind of a way to walk. It's kind of a weird back and forth, kind of like, if you think about how a zombie would walk.
Okay, so the way zombies walk, that would kind of swaying back and forth a little slow, that's called shambling?
Yeah.
Okay, well, this has turned out to be an educational episode. So we have our characters. There's 5 of them, and I can say I threw myself back in my chair multiple times as things exploded and squashed and were smashed. And they weren't jumps out of your seat, but they were definitely like throwing myself back into my seat, I think, to get away from it. It was like a visceral reaction to get away of whatever was exploding.
Yeah, so I actually quickly looked up the actual definition of shambling.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay, Scott. Okay.
Moving with a slow, shuffling, awkward gait.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Fucking nerd.
That is what he said, Scott. I think we got it. So I guess Jimmy or Scott, what thoughts do you have on our film here, Until Dawn, and what our characters do? What would you do if you were in any of their shoes? I know, Jimmy, this is a little hard for you in the fact that you are naturally going to go to the zombie position of what you would do. But if you were one of our human characters, what would you do in their shoes, knowing what you know about zombies and what they actually should have done to keep themselves safe from folks like yourself?
Okay, well, since I'm the human, I'm going to actually jump in here first.
Okay.
Jimmy can have the zombie perspective, but I'm still the human here, so I want the
Okay.
human perspective.
Okay. Go. That's the human perspective.
Yeah, I mean, this is just rough because you get trapped into this thing, and presumably you can't leave.
Like this time vortex, is that what you mean?
Well, it's not really a time vortex, but like when they tried to leave, there was a giant, god-awful sized...
Yeah, something larger than the tallest of trees in the forest that somehow started walking towards them. And the other eerie thing is, before they arrive at the visitor center, they're going through this hellacious storm, just sheets of water everywhere. And then they cross a line as straight as a ruler, and there is no rain, and that's where the visitor center is.
Yeah.
So when they try to escape, they again cross that line back into the torrential rain, and that's where they find the it's crazy high, tall tree monster thing. Which was not a zombie.
Yeah, Jimmy, do you happen to know what that tall thing was?
Hell no, I don't. But I can tell you I would run. And I'm a zombie. Screw that thing.
Fair enough. Okay. So what else you have, Scott?
Yeah, it was, for one, that one guy who was shooting all the videos. He shot a lot of videos.
He did. And by the time they got to their 13th life, which they assumed to be their last life because no other names in the guest book went signed more than 13 times, he realizes he's been filming things on his phone all along of all the previous days. And it's not clear if they're days or nights or hours, how much time exactly is going by, but they're experiencing the same night several times. And
it was basically like the worst Groundhog Day ever.
Yeah. So we actually see, as we go through the film, I think them going through 5 experiences, but then the tape that Abe has been making shows multiple other things, gross things happening to them, things exploding, things coming out of their faces. Gross. Super, super gory gross.
Yeah. Yeah, the third one that involved everyone spontaneously combusting, that was lovely.
Yeah. No, this was definitely a wince and hide your eyes and jump back kind of gruesome film, for sure.
Well, I kind of liked it.
That makes sense, Jimmy.
Yeah, but I also like the fact that they keep coming back.
Yeah.
Because
you can have another chance at them.
Usually I only get to use someone as a victim once, and then I have to find a new victim. In this case, there's 5 of them. I could kill them, eat their brains, and they come right back.
Yeah, 5 times 13. You could definitely fill yourself up.
It's like an all-you-can-eat buffet.
For sure. So, Scott, what would you do if you were in the shoes of any of our characters here? What would you do if you found yourself at this video or visitor center and unable to leave the property and realizing that you're going to die a gruesome death and then come back?
So it's
again
interesting.
And again.
So let's back up to like midway-ish or maybe a little past midway-ish when the guy's like, oh, you can leave, but one of you has to die.
Right.
So
And Abe, the guy with the videos, volunteers the girl whose mom had died, and she's had a couple of suicide attempts.
Yeah,
in the
you've
last
tried to commit
year,
suicide
saying,
twice already.
Yeah, she can go. She can go.
that guy was a jerk, but I hate to say it, but he might not have been.
Well, he was odd man out. The 4 other folks had been longtime friends, for sure, your ride or die folks. And Abe was the 3-month boyfriend of one of them. So he definitely did not feel attachment to them like they felt attachment to each other.
Yeah, no, definitely not. But I don't know. I mean, see, the problem is you can know that that's what it is, that one of you has to die, but that doesn't guarantee anything that the rest of you aren't going to still somehow die. And also, it doesn't flow with the rest of it. Like, they seem to make it pretty clear. Survive the hourglass, survive the night, you're good. Mm-hmm. Not if you survive the hourglass and someone's died.
Yeah, the someone has to die thing did come toward the end, and that confused me because all 5 of them were dying. So what does one of them has to die mean? Because
well, I think the idea here was that if at any point any one of them made it through the hourglass, then it would stop repeating. It would be done. So if you died on that run, you're dead.
Gotcha. Okay, so back to again, what would you do?
Or to smash the hourglass.
Jimmy, that's an interesting perspective.
If I was a human.
Yeah.
Since I'm not, I'd be flipping it again and again.
That's an interesting theory. Yeah, I wonder what would have happened if
Yeah, I actually
the
kind of
device had been disabled.
I actually kind of thought that too. Like, what happens if they just smash the crap out of that thing? Like, where is the power? Is the hourglass merely a timer? I mean, because obviously
something's activating.
There was some crazy supernatural shit. It wasn't just like we have a killer on the loose. I mean, you got people being pulled out of the air and thrown around and see, that's the problem. There's the what would you do? It is very hard to what would you do for supernatural crap.
Yeah, there was a witch. There was a house that all of a sudden appeared out of nowhere. There was a city that all of a sudden was visible when it hadn't been visible when they first came. There was, as you said, characters being pulled from the house and flung yards away. So yeah, there was definitely another element going on here.
Yeah, because it's hard to know whether or not whatever you do, like you could do everything right, and then all of a sudden you just get yoinked out, or something. I mean, like you're not playing on a fair playing field. So I mean that's what I do is I keep trying to do something different.
Well, and that was the difficult part, is every time they came back, it was different. And it was created to instill this constant sense of fear. So it wasn't the same situation, the same characters, and the same threat. Each life they came back, everything was different. So it would be hard to plan for that.
A lot
they
of
were
things,
still in the house.
A lot of things were different, but there were some constants, like the water causing spontaneous combustion was a constant.
Right, because the environment did something to the water from the mine, I assume. But yeah,
Yeah,
they
so
drank the
after
water,
they-
they exploded all over the place.
Yeah, after they all spontaneously combusted the first time, they all
did retain
knew,
that knowledge.
don't drink the water now.
Yeah.
And also, they knew at the end, hey, put this guy's teacup underneath the leaking water so he'll drink it and combust.
Yeah, the bad guy that was orchestrating all of this. So what I can tell you is going forward in my real life, I don't know if I'm ever going to sign any sort of guest registry ever again, because that is what started this whole thing. And that just left me with the heebie-jeebies. I don't know if I'm going to sign a guest registry
Was
again.
that the actual catalyst that started it?
Yeah.
So they weren't already screwed just being there?
I don't believe so. Because every time their new life restarted, it restarted with the signing of the name. So it was the
Yeah,
signing of
no,
the name that
you've
started
probably got a point.
It was the registry, dude. Even I could see that.
Thanks. Okay, sure.
So, and as I always say in any sort of horror or thriller that we see, houses out in the middle of nowhere are always bad news. As much as I would love the serenity of being out in the middle of nowhere, you die. If you live in a house out in the middle of nowhere or you visit a house in the middle of nowhere, you die.
Might be bad news for you. It's kind of one of my favorite things to go find, though.
Oh, yeah. And I guess sometimes you don't die, but you are tortured and maimed and fighting for your life the entire time if you get out alive. Sometimes people don't die, but, they're beaten, tortured, and...
Psychologically ruined.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I said, the supernatural thing just throws a huge wrench in the what would I do? But I think you
well,
hit...
what would you do? You go through the experience, you die, and then you start to realize, okay, this is what's happening now. I understand what's happening now. How do you fix this? How do you get out of this situation? You're with 4 friends. Well, I guess 3 friends and Abel, the guy who's the boyfriend. And what do you do? How do you fix this?
So what I probably would have actually started doing as much as possible, and they did this a little bit, but I would have been more meticulous about it. I would have been like, okay, listen, we're going to assume that we're going to die here again. So, like, you drive the truck out into the rain, see what happens, see if there's a way of getting away.
Well, they already did that. That's when the horrendous tree monster...
Well, I know. I mean, I'm just noting as a point, like, do that, report back. You go check out thing A and see if there's anything. You check out thing B. Like, gather as much data as you can about the environment. Also, gather as much data as you can about the layout of the environment. Like, know where stuff is, because presumably if you figured out, okay, we have about 13 deaths here and we're probably going to get eaten, because these guys obviously are going to know the layout. Like, whoever's trying to kill them,
Right.
Like, they're not going to be hampered by that.
And initially they thought, okay, we just need to survive until dawn. So I think probably Life 3, where they were hiding in the bathroom. And they're like, we're just going to wait it out here. And then that's when they all drank the water and exploded. But ultimately, the bad guy, who seems to have been someone who ran some sort of sanitarium once upon a time, because that's always the case, there's always a crazy guy in a sanitarium, he said, well, someone's got to die. So you guys figure that out.
Listen, I don't take the human point of view on much, but I think you two are missing something really freaking obvious.
Okay, Jimmy, what's that?
You know when they went in the bathroom?
Yeah.
And they drank water?
Yeah.
And they died?
Yeah, they exploded.
On the 4th go-round, I just would have gone back into the bathroom and not drank the water. Everything seemed to be going just fine until they drank the water.
Yeah, but someone's got to die. So how does that
Well,
help?
I didn't know that then.
Well, yeah, but that just would have been a wasted life.
Well, is it? Or was that just something they were told? It's like a red herring. Because, yeah, they didn't know that at that point. And they seem to, based on the hourglass, do a pretty good job of just hiding out in that bathroom. So, yeah, I would have just done that again and just not drink the water. And maybe something else would have come up, but at least if it does, then like...
You could have had a couple of calm lives just hanging out in the bathroom.
Yeah, I think I know what Jimmy's point is basically you do the things that are working for you and don't do the things that aren't working for you. Hiding in the bathroom, working. Drinking the water, not working.
Right.
Build off that. Now, that said, I still don't know why they couldn't have someone just bust into the bathroom.
Yeah, the zombies certainly got into the house. And there was one sort of super mega zombie where it didn't matter what you did to him, you could not kill that guy. And they had some messed up faces, and that, the one I'm talking about at the very beginning where, they stabbed him, they hit him, like he was pretty indestructible. He looked like the Terminator version of a zombie.
Yeah, but they got him at the end.
Yeah, persistence.
And that's the thing. Listen, if you want to kill a zombie...
Yeah, actually, Jimmy, that would be great information for our listeners to have.
I mean, I don't really want people to know this because,
Understood.
personal conflict of interest.
Well,
but
okay, so listeners, don't come after Jimmy or his family or friends.
we eat brains, but also, if you can take our brains out, we're done.
Oh,
So you could chop our heads off, or as the three of them did, you could just take a sledgehammer to our dome and just splatter the brains everywhere. I assure you, we're not getting up from that.
okay. Well, I appreciate that very vulnerable share, Jimmy. I know that is something that you're sharing with our audience for them to keep to themselves for knowledge in the future, but not information to be spread wide.
Yeah, I
Widely.
still need to be able to eat, so.
Yeah.
And most people don't know how to kill me, and I'd rather keep it that way.
Understood. Well, I appreciate that, Jimmy. That was very helpful. Scott, Jimmy, any closing thoughts here?
Yeah, I think like you said earlier, don't go out to weird houses in the woods. And if somebody tells you don't let the evil in, don't let the evil in.
Take the opposite side of what he just said. Definitely go to the house in the middle of nowhere, and definitely let the evil in, and tell him I said hi.
We hope you enjoyed our episode. Thank you for listening. And to catch all the new episodes, please subscribe. We release 2 to 3 episodes weekly, so we'll have new content regularly. Until next time.